So now let's work on how we can edit and delete a comment. So up here I'm going to define a new function and call this remove comment. Okay, so inside here we are going to have a try and catch block. Now let's have our comment rep here. It should be equal to doc. Let's import our DB here. Okay, it was inside our post collection. We need to have our post ID. Following that, our sub collection names. Okay, and we need to target the specific comment using its ID. So in here it should be comment.id. Okay, this one. So now here is our reference, and all you need to do is just write await delete doc, and we need to pass this ref here. Of course this function should be asynchronous function. So now let's send this toast notification here. We're going to say comment has been removed. Okay, and we need to have this toast notification inside this error also. Alright, okay, and we need to pass this function inside this button click. So as you can see, we need to delete this string and add this function here. Okay, so if you remember, we have this function here. So in here I'm going to set an on click, and it should be click function. Okay, so now let's delete this comment here. If I delete it, you can see I'm able to delete this specific comment. So when I delete this comment, I want this drop down to be closed. So after the comment is deleted, I'm going to set the drop to be false. Okay, now let's delete this. You can see the drop down will be closed. So now let's work on how we can edit a comment. As you can see in here, if I click this edit this response, we will have another text area here, and our comment text will be printed here. Okay, so we need to have another box. Okay, so inside this section we need to set another condition based on our edit. So I'm going to have another, I'm going to call this edit and set is edit. Okay, and it should be equal to use state hook, and for now let's set it to be true by default. So in here I'm going to minimize this div. So we are going to set a condition. So I'm going to copy all of them here. I'm going to say if is edit is false, then I want to print this div and this paragraph here, and of course they should be inside a fragment. Okay, and otherwise we are going to print another div. Okay, so for now, because this is edit is true, we are going to print this div. If I write a text here, now you can see here are our text. Okay, now let's implement this div here. So we need to have a class name for this one. bg should be white, and we need to have shadows. Also padding should be 4. Okay, you can see here are our boxes. So inside here we need to have our text area. So let's delete all of them from here. We need to have a class name which should be full. It shouldn't be resizable. Okay, and outline should be none. We need to have a text of small. So for this we need to have a placeholder, and the placeholder should be write your update text. Okay, as you can see here are our text areas, but we need to have some gap between them. So I'm going to open this comments. As you can see we have this data, so I'm going to wrap it with a new div here. Okay, and this div will have a class name of text should be gray and 500. Border top, okay, and we need to have a padding Y of 4. Margin top should be 8. Flex column, and gap should be 8. Okay, and okay, we need to wrap this with parentheses here. All right, now let's check it. As you can see, our divs have enough spaces. Okay, so as you can see, we need to have 2 buttons down here. So I'm going to open this comment, and down this text area we are going to have 2 buttons. So they will be inside a separate div with the class name of flex. Items center and justify should be end. Okay, and also we need to have a gap of 2. So let's have our button here. The first one is going to be console, and the second one is going to be update. Okay, they are here, and for this console we are going to have a class name of width, fit, and text should be small. For this update we are going to have a class name of button, but text should be white, and BG is going to be green and 700. Okay, and we need to have rounded off full. Okay, now they are looking good. Okay, you can see we need to have a smaller text here, so text should be extra small. Okay, now you can see we have smaller text here. Okay, so now we need to make this text area dissipate using this console button. As you can see, if I click this response, we are going to have this box, and if I click this console, it will be closed. So in here and inside this console button, I'm going to have an onClick function, and set as edit should be back to false. Okay, so if I click it here, you can see it will be dissipate. And now let's open it by the help of this edit response. So up here, as you can see, we have this. So I'm going to set this as edit to be true. Okay, so if I click it, now you can see I'm able to close and open this. All right, so when I open this and close this model, I want this drop down to be closed also. So in here I'm going to store this inside an object and set drop should be false also. Okay, so let's open it, and if I click it back, you can see we don't have that drop down anymore. All right, now let's add the functionality. So if I click this edit this response, this comment text should be printed inside this text area. So at first we need to have a useState hook to get the value of this text area. So up here I'm going to say edit comment, set edit comment. Okay, and it should be equal to useState hook and will be empty string by default. Okay, so inside this text area we need to have a value. It should be edit comment, and onChange should be set edit comment and e.target.value. Okay, so now up here I'm going to make a new function here. So I'm gonna call this edit comment. Okay, and inside here, as you can see, I have added this set edit to be true and set drop to be false. So now I'm going to copy them from here, and instead of this I'm going to add this edit comment. So inside this function let's paste them here. Okay, and following this, we need to set our edit comment to be comment text. As you can see, we have this comment text here. Let's bring it back to be false here. Okay, if I open this drop down and click the edit this response, you can see now this text is printed inside my text area and it's ready to be updated. So now let's update it. So down this function, we need to have another function. I'm gonna call this handle edit. Okay, so we are going to have a try and catch block inside it. At first, let's have our reference here. Should be equal to this doc. Let's have our DB inside it. Okay, our post collection and comments. We are going to get this comment ID here. So comment dot ID. We are going to get the specific comment here. Okay, so down here we are going to say await, and this time it should be update doc, and the first argument is going to be reference, and finally we are going to send our new data here. This function is going to be asynchronous function. Okay, inside here we are going to send our new data. We need to send the comment text to be our edited text here. Okay, and I wanna change this date also, date.now. Following that, I'm going to send the user ID. So user ID is going to be current user dot uid. Okay, and this is how you can update the sub collection. So following that, I'm going to set the edit comment to be the empty string. I'm going to close this set as edit to be false. Okay, and also I'm going to close this drop down. It should be false. Okay, and finally we're going to send a push notification here and say that comment has been updated, and let's have a push notification inside this error message. Okay, and this should be error.message. Alright, now we need to have a loading. I forget to add the loading here. So in here I'm going to say const loading set loading is equal to use set hook, and it should be false by default. So when the user start editing the comment, it should be set loading to be true. And finally, when the comment is updated or we get an error, we are going to set this loading to be false. Okay, and that's it. Now let's pass this handle edit to our button here. As you can see, we have this button. Okay, now let's check it. So if I click this drop down and let's change the text to be new text is added, and of course we need to set a condition here. So I'm going to say if we have loading, we're going to say updating here, otherwise we're going to say update. Okay, so now if I click this button, okay, seems we have an error. Okay, we forget to add our post ID, so we need to add our post ID to get the specific post, and you can see we have this post ID. Okay, now if I click this update, you can see we have this loading here, and finally comment has been updated. Let's test it on this comment also. This comment is updated as well. Now if I click this button, okay, now you can see this comment text has been updated. Okay guys, here is one thing that I forget. I should increment the length of this comments here. So inside this comments, as you can see, we have the responses here. So in here we need to write the length of our data. So I'm going to say data.length. Okay. Now you can see here we have two comments. If I add another comment here, it will be incremented. Okay, we need to set it back to be false here. So I'm going to set it back to be false. Okay guys, so now when I click this button, I should be able to open that sidebar, and also I need to increment this number. So as you can see, here is our component. Okay, so to be able to do this, we are going to have our useState hook inside our context API, because they are not at the same root, so we can pass it via props. So inside this comments, if you remember, we have this show model. So I'm going to get them from here, and let's open our context. Okay, and in here I'm going to add this useState hook, and also for this comment length we are going to have another useState hook. So in here I'm going to say const comment length and set comment length, and it should be equal to useState hook, and it will be 0 by default. Okay, so I'm going to rename it to be show comment, and this one should be set show comment. Okay, now let's pass them to our context API. Okay, let's add comma. So now I'm going to open this comment here, and in here I'm going to get our set show comment from this block. Okay, and also we are going to need this comment length. Alright, so I'm going to print it here, and in here I'm going to have an onClick function. Set show comment should be true. Okay, and inside here I'm going to get this show comment and set show comment from our block. Okay, and now we need to replace our useState hook because we have a different name for them. Okay, and also we need to change the show model to be show comment, and set show comment we are going to replace it with this one. Okay, now you can see our length is 0 by default. So if I click this button, I'm able to open this sidebar menu, and also using this button I'm able to close it. So now let's see how you can get the length of our comments here. Okay, so inside this comments component we are going to get this set comment length here. It should be set comment length. Okay, so down here I'm going to define a useEffect hook, and I'm going to say if we have data, then I just simply set this comment length to be data.length. Okay, and I'm gonna change this data as dependency here. Now let's check it. As you can see, we have 3 comments here. So now if I add another comment, let's say new comment here, and click it, you can see this text has been incremented. But I forget something here. So similar to the like, we need to have our function that we added inside this helper function, this format name. So I'm going to copy this from here, and we need to wrap our comment length with this function. Okay, and that's it. So now let's push this code. I'm going to say comment is implemented. Okay, alright,